Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Easy English Podcast, your go-to source for mastering English without the stress, without the overwhelm. I'm your host in presenter's name, and today we're diving into a topic that I'm sure every English learner can relate to: how to learn English easily. Whether you're just starting your journey with the language or you've been learning for a while and feel stuck, this episode is for you. Today, I'll be sharing insights, tips, and a lot of practical advice that will make your learning process smoother, more effective, and, most importantly, more enjoyable. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to introduce myself properly for any of our new listeners. My name is Presenter's Name, and I've been teaching English for over a number of years. Throughout my career, I've helped countless students from around the world, just like you, reach their English language goals. And I know from experience that learning a new language doesn't have to be a painful, tedious task. In fact, with the right approach, it can be quite fun, almost like a game. And I know you're probably wondering, a game? Learning English is a game? Yes, I'll explain exactly what I mean in today's episode. But first, let me give a little background on this podcast. The Easy English Podcast is here to give you practical tips, strategies, and motivational stories that keep you inspired on your English learning journey. Each episode, we break down a topic related to language learning and go deep, not just talking about the what, but also the how and the why. You'll walk away from each episode with actionable tips that you can start using right away. And trust me, consistency is the key when learning a language, and every small step you take brings you closer to fluency. So let me take you back to a time in my life when I had to learn a foreign language myself. I was in my early 20s, and I decided to move to country name, a country where the language was completely unfamiliar to me. Now, I had taken a few classes in that language back in school, but like many of you probably feel, it just didn't stick. I remember sitting in my tiny apartment in city name, completely lost. The grocery store, the street signs, the public transportation system, everything was in this foreign language that I didn't understand. I felt overwhelmed, just like many English learners do when they're first starting out. But slowly, day by day, I started to pick things up. And no, it wasn't through endless hours of textbook learning. Instead, I started focusing on practical situations. I learned words that I needed to survive, to order food, to navigate the city, and gradually I realized something important. Learning a language doesn't have to be overwhelming if you focus on what's relevant to you at the moment. That was my first breakthrough, and that's the first lesson I want to share with you today. You see, one of the biggest mistakes language learners make is trying to learn everything at once. They want to know all the grammar rules, memorize lists of vocabulary, and be able to speak fluently from day one. But that's not how our brains work. The key to learning English, or any language, is focusing on what's relevant to you at each stage of your learning journey. For example, let's say you're learning English because you want to travel. You don't need to know complex business terms or scientific vocabulary right away. What you need are phrases and words that will help you navigate an airport, check into a hotel, or order a meal at a restaurant. And once you've mastered that, you can start building on it. Here's a concrete example. When I was learning language name, I didn't start by learning all the verb tenses or memorizing hundreds of words. No, I started by learning how to introduce myself. It's one of the most basic yet practical things you can learn in any language. And that's what I encourage you to do in English. Start with the basics, things you'll actually use in everyday situations. Learn how to introduce yourself, how to ask for directions, how to make small talk. These are things you'll encounter almost daily, and once you're comfortable with them, you'll have built a solid foundation that you can expand on. So let's dive a bit deeper into what I mean. Imagine you're meeting someone for the first time in English. You want to make a good first impression, but you're not sure how to introduce yourself properly. Well, here's a simple, effective structure you can follow. First, start with a greeting. Something as simple as, "Hi, my name is your name." This is basic, but it's the foundation of every self-introduction. Next, give a little information about yourself. You could say something like, "I'm from your country," or "I live in your city." This is a chance to share something personal and relatable. Then add a detail about what you do. For example, "I'm a student," or "I work in your job field." Keep it simple and straightforward. Finally, you can end with a question to keep the conversation going. Something like, "What about you?" or "Where are you from?" And there you have it, a simple yet effective way to introduce yourself in English. Now you might be thinking, "Okay, I get the basics, but what about the hard stuff?" Well, the hard stuff comes with time. The more you practice these basic interactions, the more comfortable you'll become, and before you know it, you'll be able to have longer, more complex conversations. Now, here's something I really want you to understand. Consistency is everything when it comes to learning English. It's not about how much time you spend in one sitting. It's about showing up every day, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. Research shows that people who practice consistently, even for short periods, learn faster than those who study for hours at a time, but only occasionally. In fact, according to a study published by Research Institution, learners who practice for just 15 minutes a day retain information up to 30% better than those who cram for longer sessions. So let's say you're learning 5 new words a day. That's it, just 5 words. In a month, that's 150 new words. And in a year, that's 1,825 new words in your vocabulary. Imagine how much more confident you'll feel knowing that you've built your English vocabulary step by step, day by day. Here's an example. I once had a student named Student's Name. She was determined to learn English, but she struggled with consistency. She would study for hours one week and then not study at all the next. I encouraged her to adopt a daily routine, even if it was just 10 minutes. Within a few months, her progress skyrocketed. By the end of the year, she had learned over 1,000 new words and was able to hold a conversation in English with ease. Her success wasn't because she studied for hours, but because she showed up every day, no matter how busy her schedule was. So, what's the takeaway from today's episode? First, focus on what's relevant to you. Start with the basics and build your foundation. Second, be consistent. Even if it's just 10 minutes a day, commit to showing up every day. And finally, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake is a step toward improvement. Remember, learning English, or any language, is a journey, not a destination. It takes time, but with the right approach, it can be an enjoyable and rewarding process. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Easy English Podcast. I hope you found today's episode helpful, and I encourage you to take these tips and put them into practice. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review or sharing it with a friend who might find it helpful. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep learning, stay consistent, and remember, you've got this.